We are going to go back to the Teasdale living. So this was published April 19th of 2000. Well, Jean Contiers, I've got a confession to make. For a while there, I was not following my trusty old axiom. Keep smiling. In fact, you could say that my frown practically dragged on the ground. For starters, once again, my career was not going so well. That job I had, sorting donated clothes at Goodwill, just didn't work out. It was only 20 hours a week and paid nearly $6 an hour. After just 1 week, I quit. I thought a tireless bargain hunter like myself would love a job like that. But it was just too boring. Plus, some of the donations were positively gross. They wouldn't even make good rags to wash your car with. I can't believe people can be so insensitive toward the poor. After quitting that job, I went to the mall and applied for a position at this earring store, ringing on my ears. I have always been fascinated by piercing guns, and I have a pretty steady hand. But applying turned out to be an ordeal because I had to check yes for the question on the application that asks if you've ever been convicted of a crime or misdemeanor. You see, a couple months ago, I had one of my bouts with depression and was caught shoplifting circus peanuts from the Pamita. I got off on 1 year's probation and 30 hours of community service, picking up trash along Highway DX. But judging from the look I got from the ringing on my ears manager who took my application, she probably thought I was going to pistol whip her and steal the money from the cash register. Needless to say, I never did get a call back about that job, nor the one at Chewy Dewey's old time cookie company, which is probably just as well. With me on the job, they'd had to order twice the chocolate. For the next few weeks, I was down in the dumps in a major way. I took to my waterbed so much that I probably qualified as a seaworthy vessel. Not only that, I put on nearly 15 pounds. One day, as hubby Rick was leaving for work, he looked at me and said, "You'd better get out of that bed and start moving, or soon we are gonna have to knock out a wall just to get you out of the room." Boy, I can always count on Rick for moral support. In between periods of sleep, I gloomily assessed my life. Here I was, 40 years old, and I had scarcely made anything of myself. I had little education, no savings, and no kids. And on top of that, let's face it, my career path had veered straight off into no man's land. I think it's because I've always been a sensitive and artistic person, and I get easily bored with humdrum tasks that don't involve my inner emotions. That's how I feel because I have ADHD. I'll repeat it again. I've always been a sensitive and artistic person, and I get easily bored with humdrum tasks that don't involve my inner emotions. If only I could stay at home like Mom. I thought to myself, no boring 40-hour-a-week job, just the responsibility of making a nice home for my family. Then it hit me. I can't believe I didn't think of it before. Why couldn't I become a full-time homemaker? Hubby Rick just got promoted to associate manager at the tire center with a raise of nearly $2 an hour. So it's not like we needed the second income. Plus, our apartment desperately needed someone to look after it full-time. Yes, off the record, you guys, I can relate. I was raised by one stay-at-home parent. I always feel like my habitat needs someone to look after it full-time. I love to cook and bake and do little creative projects, so there would be absolutely no excuse for us to eat out of cans and pizza boxes anymore. What's more, I thought it would really help our marriage. Rick's always complaining about how he never has a nice place to come home to. If I kept our home all nice and neat, maybe he would stop spending all that time at Tacky's Tavern and spend a little more time with me. Hubba hubba. Then who knows, maybe I would finally be preggers. God knows my biological clock is ticking louder than a time bomb. The possibilities were staggering. Besides, there's absolutely no shame in a woman being a homemaker. What? With Martha Stewart so huge these days? Martha is my idol. I have learned so much about running a household just by watching her show, her catalog. She's shown the world that being a homemaker is just as good as having a career outside the home. Sure, some folks like to act like big shots by becoming doctors and lawyers and so on, but can they arrange flowers or make their own lip balm like Martha can? I thought not. Once I made my decision to be a stay-at-home wife, I got out my trusty old credit card and ordered a couple of wreath-making kits from Martha's catalog. And I couldn't resist tossing in an adorable little green glass container shaped like a chicken. It set me back more than $100, but I decided from here on everything in the Teasdale household would be pure class with a capital C. After all, Martha wouldn't be caught dead sorting through crummy old clothes at Goodwill, so why should I? And my probation officer, Judy, would be so proud of me for spending my time in a constructive way. When I got the wreath kit in the mail the next day, I was overjoyed. The brand new, creative, organized, happy Jean was born. Well, almost born. Turns out I had to go to 5 different flower shops before I could find the dried hydrangeas the wreath required. By the time I began making the wreath, it was almost time for Rick to get home. And with dinner not yet made and the place filled with unwashed dishes, mounds of laundry, and a reeking litter box, I seemed more like Martha Stewart's evil twin than Martha herself. Yes, that is the story of my life. Dinner not made, mounds of laundry, and a reeking litter box. So, remembering my vow to be a good homemaker, I dropped my hydrangea project and made a beeline for the kitchen. But I stopped in my tracks when I discovered to my horror that my kitty Garfield was throwing up all over the already filthy kitchen floor. I shooed him away, but that didn't do any good because he just kept vomiting as he scurried away into the bedroom. This required immediate action, so I hauled out a mop and bucket, poured a cup of ammonia into half a gallon of bleach. Don't ever do that, you guys. My true story. Dad, he lived next to a young 14-year-old boy and his mom, and I guess his mom was cleaning. It had to have been in the 70s. Mom had combined bleach with ammonia. It had asked my dad for help, and there was really nothing that they could do. I know the paramedics came and she could not be revived. So I know this is a very satire article, but this is just a brief disclaimer on how I know that ammonia and bleach is bad, all right? Hauled out a mop and bucket, poured a cup of ammonia into half a gallon of bleach, and commenced to swabbing the old deck. I was making pretty good progress, but then something happened that I hadn't experienced since playing badminton in 10th grade gym class. I began to feel very dizzy. I remember rushing for a Dixie cup in the bathroom to stop the burning sensation in my nostrils and throat. But then it gets kind of hazy after that. I do vaguely remember being outside on the lawn with a blanket over me. An ambulance was there and a group of neighbors had gathered around. And hubby Rick was standing over me, yelling something about how because of this, he would have to miss quarter taps night at Tacky's. Yeah, he's a douche. Well, is my face red because it ends up that hubby Rick found me passed out in the bathroom with a big bruise on my forehead where it had hit the sink. He called 911. Paramedic actually had to get me breathing again with mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. I was too out of it to get a good look at the paramedic, but I sure hope he was a hunk. Or it was pretty close call for your old pal Jean, that's for sure. The most embarrassing part is that the paramedics contacted my probation officer even after I swore up and down that the whole thing was just a silly accident. After hearing about the incident, Judy said she was convinced I have a history of erratic behavior, whatever that means, so I had to promise her to be more careful while housekeeping in the future. Okay, my career as a domestic goddess did not get off to such an auspicious start, but I eventually got my wreath done, and it looked very nice. That is until my other kitty, Priscilla, pulled it down and wrecked it. My doctor recommended that I stay home and recuperate for a few weeks, so I've gotten a lot of housework done. Admittedly, it gets a little boring at times, but that suits me just fine, because at least I'm not slaving away at some unfulfilling, low-paying job that I probably wouldn't be good at anyway. So my advice to all of you out there, all of you people out there who want to spend more time inside your house is grab that brass ring and go for it. After all, if you ignore your real dreams, you'll never be happy. And always remember that there is a positive side to everything. For example, hitting my head in the bathroom seemed like a bad thing at the time, but because of that, I've been housebound and haven't had to explain to Rick why I haven't gotten a job. Yes, that sounds, just off the record, you guys, that sounds eerily familiar with me because, you know, like I'll have periods of unemployment with my mental health history. He still doesn't know about my new career as a homemaker, but I'm sure he will eventually go along with it. I just have to find the right time to break the news to him. In the comment section, please comment down below if you like these onion articles. Do you like my cat videos? I think the only issue with my cat videos is that I can only do so many videos of my cat. So I feel like I can't dedicate my entire channel to the cat. Please comment, like down below. Do you like these onion articles? Do you not? I feel like Jean Teasdale is pretty relatable to those of us who have ADHD and depression and that sort of thing. All right, see you in the next video. Bye.